Hello, hello. My name is Jess, and this is Patient POV. You can find me on Instagram at Jess underscore and underscore Elda. Elda is my service dog in training who is sitting right beside me. Let's see. Oh, there you go. You got her little head if you're watching the video. And so today we're listening to Kyra as she talks about her journey with so that's endometriosis, and she also talks about some mental health and chronic pain. And so it was really interesting to hear from her perspective, having endometriosis. We've talked to a few people already and their journey, but she's Canadian and she is on the West Coast. And so that was a lot of fun to have that conversation. And she talks about her experience with her parents in terms of how they've been able to support her. And so it's overall, I'll let you listen, but it was a really great conversation. She also references she has a lot of good recommendations. So you can, on the description of this, you can see the links available to some things that she had recommended. And then also, she does some really well phrasing when you're talking to a doctor, specifically like new doctors. And so I have that in the bio as well, so you can reference it back again. So always just look in the bio or the description. I can't remember what it's called, but that's where you can find those things. And then update on me. Not much happened over the last week. So I don't know if there's really noteworthy things to update on, but I'm excited for you to listen and hear. And so I hope everyone has a great week ahead. And thank you so much. Hello, hello. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. So why don't we just jump right in, and do you want to just introduce yourself and kind of who you are and a little bit about your health background?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Kyra. I live in the West Coast. I've lived here all my life. I am a former burnt out healthcare worker. Uh, and so many people are. Last year, I moved back into my childhood home, and so now I'm living with my parents. So with mom and dad and our little dog, Kua. And yeah, next year I'm marrying my awesome partner in the spring. So it's super excited for that. Yeah, and I was officially diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis in February of this year. And prior to that, the previous year, it was suspected by a gynecologist, but for a while, I had my suspicions. I first got sick. I had two longer periods of being sick. Once in middle school and once in high school that lasted for like over a year each time. So having to sort of alter my workload and things, and doctors could never really figure out what was going on, and outside of chronic fatigue and dietary changes. So there were a lot of doctors that chalked it up to my mental health. So I had to end up switching doctors, and I have a really lovely family doctor now who is my saving grace.
Mhm.
So I'm a very, very lucky in that regard.
Yeah, no, for sure. Doctors who don't listen is a problem for sure.
Oh, yes, very
Yeah.
much so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were kind of just chatting before about the differences between, you mentioned you have stage 4. So stage 4, what do the stages mean?
So the stages, it has to do with the progression of the endometriosis in you. So for me, I have stage 4. So it's impacting my bladder, it's impacting my ovaries. But the stage of endometriosis doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the severity of your symptoms.
Hmm.
So there you can have stage 1 endometriosis, but be in a lot of debilitating pain, even though there might not be a lot, quote unquote, of
Mm,
endometriosis. Um, and then there are people that have more that it's easier. They don't notice it. So it talks about how widespread it is, but also how deeply infiltrating the endometriomas or the lesions would be.
Okay, yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for that explanation. Gives everybody a little bit of context as they listen and into what we're talking about for sure. So another thing that is not on our question list, but I always throw in for everybody who comes on, or I'm trying to throw it in for everyone, is right now, is there any TV shows or movies or books that you're reading that you're enjoying right now?
Ooh, okay. Let's see. I'm a
Okay,
podcast
podcast.
person.
Yeah.
I am like constantly listening to podcasts. Some of my all-time favorites have been maintenance phase.
Ooh.
You're wrong about. My favorite like lighter one is Shameless. It's an Australian podcast that's always talking about like pop culture and things. And then there's another one, an advice podcast that I love called Don't Blame Me. And it's a bunch of call-ins and write-ins. And sometimes it's like really helpful advice that's like really beneficial. And then other times people just like call in with wild situations. So it's great.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, that's entertaining. Good. I haven't had somebody throw in a podcast, and so I like that. That was good. Our most common one recently has been everybody's watching Gilmore Girls.
Oh, yes, it's the season.
It's
It's
the
the
season.
season.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad it was a new answer. I love Gilmore Girls. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. So let's jump back into these questions of how has your life changed since being diagnosed, since having these chronic conditions, whether it was diagnosed or not? How does that look for you?
um, for me, I always thought that I wasn't as tough as my peers.
Mm,
And it's like if I just work a little bit harder, I can do more extracurriculars when I was in school or volunteer more, or when I was working, I can pick up more shifts or work more overtime. And now I'm realizing it was never that. I just
mm,
have a lot of things going on. But like as far as things that have changed in my life and not just been different than other people's, I don't drive much now.
mm,
When I do drive, it's just short distances, but because I live with my parents and they're both retired, which is really nice, we sort of coordinate their errands around my appointments and things.
mm.
So it really helps, just leaves me more energy when I'm going to physio or the doctor. I don't have to waste it on driving, which is really nice. Um, and I don't work anymore. I haven't worked since May of last year.
Mm.
And my old hobbies like my hike, like I used to hike and quilt, and I love baking. Just like I can't do things, do as many things. I can't do things with the same duration, same intensity
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. No, that's completely fair. Understandable
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah,
Body's going through a lot.
yeah. There's a lot of things to be going on.
Yeah, exactly. So you were mentioning that you got officially diagnosed in this February, was it?
Yeah, that's one that because you can get a clinical diagnosis for endometriosis depending on your gynecologist. Like
Mm,
mine could look at my history and said there's absolutely no way you don't have it.
mm,
But for the most part, endometriosis isn't going to show up on scans. It's not going to show up on blood tests. The only way to actually diagnose it properly is through a laparoscopy.
mm.
So that was how it was actually officially diagnosed.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. Wonderful. So that was officially diagnosed this February. And
Yes.
then how long previous to that have you been struggling to get a diagnosis?
Um, I could say like it's probably like off and on since I was for 10 years.
Mm,
So we'd figure things out enough that I could just live my life and keep going, and then things would kind of flare up again
mm,
and it'd be bad. But I just thought that I'm a person that has bad periods,
right.
and it's hereditary. So my mom didn't know that it wasn't atypical to have periods that were this bad
Gotcha.
because she likely had undiagnosed endometriosis. So
Gotcha.
so it's a I forget the question was, sorry.
That's okay. No, that's okay. No, no, you're good. It was how long
Oh
had it
yes,
been
yeah,
that
like 10
that was
years.
yeah, 10
10
years. Okay.
years. Yeah.
Okay, good. No, no, no. And then you were mentioning that you had some not great
Wait,
experiences. Oh,
no, I think it would have been longer than that. I just made myself younger in my head when I was doing the math.
that's okay. We'll say 10 years. A little longer than 10 years.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning that you now have a good doctor. You now have a doctor that's
Yes.
supportive and helpful and willing to listen to what you're saying and work with you. Have you experienced we're hearing a little bit more nowadays about like medical gaslighting, and you were mentioning they were writing it off on mental health and
Hmm.
like diet changes and all these different things that are
Hmm.
very commonly said to women in particular. What has
Yes.
your experience been like in
Oh my gosh, yes. So like, no, even my good doctor, I still get anxious to go see her simply because I'm so used to being dismissed or talked down to or things. But it's very much like one of the most ridiculous things that a doctor told me to do that would probably fix my pain was he told me to stop chewing gum and stop drinking pop because it can contribute to gas. And I would have been probably like 14 at the time. And I was like, but I don't do either of those things.
oh
and it was definitely hard on my parents too because there was a time that same doctor had been like, maybe mom's just a little too overbearing and lots of things. But I actually, the reason I found out my initial doctor um, wasn't really pursuing anything and was chalking it up to my mental health, which I didn't know, was because I saw a locum to go over my blood work, and he mentioned that it was on my chart that it was probably linked to depression.
oh my.
And yeah, and so then it's like, okay, so that's when we started looking for a doctor and I found one that would take me on. But I've had the positive experiences with doctors really stand out in memory because they're so rare.
Mm.
Like I've gone to the ER in like pain crisis a couple times and crummy doctors. But then I had one doctor the last time I went that was like an angel. He was amazing. He was so friendly. He was great. So, but yes, it's not an isolated experience.
Yeah. So you were mentioning even putting the pressure on you yourself as the patient, it puts a lot of stress and pressure on you, but it also puts a lot of stress and pressure on your parents as well. That's something
Yeah.
that doesn't get talked about a whole lot either, is like the parent side of things. And then the other thing that you mentioned was that he was telling you one thing, which was not even reasonable, with the gum and the soda, and you don't
Yeah.
even do it. And then he's not even telling you things that he's putting on your chart. So it's that transparency of this
Yes.
um help me out here with that word.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Transparency of
Just
your health records.
communicating. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure. I can't believe that. So you have your parents that are kind of in this stressful situation. You're in this stressful situation, don't know what to believe. How did that contribute to your mental health throughout that time?
It definitely did not help
Right.
it. I was definitely, I was always like an anxious kid,
Mm,
and I'm still an anxious adult. So it's very isolating
mm,
being ill, being alone, not being able to be in school full time, all those things. And then as well as an adult, it's still very isolating.
mm.
And when you're on a totally different path than your friends and your peers, it feels weird. But like now I have a really good therapist who's awesome, and I'd been working with her for a year, and she's like, hey, I should disclose I do have endometriosis, so like you she's like, I do understand, and if you want to delve more into that. I was like, oh, that's great, I didn't even know, but now I understand why you're so helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, having that therapist is really helpful, and I'm really fortunate that I'm able to access that
Mm,
because so many people aren't. And even when you do have the resources to access it, finding a good therapist is like dating. It's hard to
yeah.
find a good fit. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that. I like that analogy.
So I always tell my friends, like, get a journal. It doesn't have to be aesthetic, or you can make it as aesthetic as you want, and just like dump everything that's in your brain onto the
Yeah.
paper because it's not going to fix it, but it'll feel a little lighter.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. Journaling. We'll have to add that to the list of things to do or coping mechanisms. Do you have any
Yes.
other coping mechanisms that you've learned to use?
Let's see. I've discovered that like when I'm really just feeling dysregulated, a shower
Mm,
is a really good something soothing for me. And like I got a shower chair just to help with all the symptoms and stuff, and that's I cannot recommend that enough. Oh my gosh, it's revolutionary. What else? I Even though exercise isn't like I can't go to the gym and do a big workout anymore, there's like seeing different exercises or even just like gentle stretches you can do in your bed
mm,
that like makes me feel kind of good. And if I can't get outside, going just stepping outside and just like sitting on the front porch for even like literally 2 minutes, just getting
mhm.
that fresh air really helps. Really,
Yeah,
really helps.
no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and then you were mentioning that you're living at home again, and that you also have a partner because you're getting married, right?
Yes.
Very soon.
Yes.
That's so exciting. So do you want to just dive into again who your support system is if we're missing anyone, and then how your support system has changed over the time?
Yeah, for sure. So my partner and I are actually long distance.
Oh,
So he would be like I'd say he's like my primary emotional support.
mm,
And he helps with a lot of um like anything that I might need double checked as far as my brain fog. He helps me like going over stuff, but my parents would be my primary physical support.
mm,
So they're around, like we all have dinner together every night. So it's one meal that I never have to prepare and that sort of thing. And then I also have like a handful of like friends that I'm close with, and they, not every friend is going to every friend is different, and every friend has like a different kind of purpose and a place. Like you talk about different things with different people, which is one, it's really nice because it spreads out the emotional labor amongst
mm.
people, but also it's just like having more people that understand even just part of you, it feels really good.
Yeah, no, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, awesome. Yeah. And then what would a daily life like I know every day can sometimes vary, but if you had to summarize like what a day in the life would look like, what would that look like for you?
My mornings are very consistent. Every single morning I have
Oh,
like a protein smoothie and a decaf latte, and I sit in my easy chair and I crochet.
oh,
Um and then just during the day I've really been working on practicing pacing to just avoid overdoing it. So it's a balance of like my regular like care tasks and physio as well as doctor's appointments and different things. And then every evening, my parents and I, we have dinner, we watch a sitcom,
oh,
and we're currently watching Fresh Off the Boat, and that's wonderful.
nice, nice.
And then in the evening, I'm on a FaceTime call with my fiance, and we just chat about the day, but oftentimes we just listen to podcasts and just
Oh,
just hang out.
that's so cute. I love that. What are you working on right now for crocheting?
Um, I am working on blankets. I have one blanket that I'm almost finished. So I started another blanket, so I'm not so sad when I finish the other one.
Oh,
So
that's a great way to do it. Awesome.
I'm not entirely sure if it's like smart or if it's just procrastinating, but it's working.
Hey, whatever
It's
works.
working. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just to jump back a little bit, we
Mhm.
were talking about the healthcare system. You were saying you're in the West Coast. We're talking about Canada,
Mhm.
because I've talked to a few people from other countries. So how has your journey in the Canadian, specifically West Coast, healthcare system been like?
It's been it's been definitely overall it's been positive.
Hmm,
Like I'm really my fiance's American,
hmm,
and so I'm super grateful that finances are not a stressor. because there's already so many other things that are stressors with that. So I'm really grateful for that, but it's slow.
Mm.
It's very slow. It's very slow. And so like I've been referred to a pelvic pain clinic that I'm really excited about going to. But the wait list is 8 to 12 months.
Yep.
So and that's not uncommon. That's just kind of everything. And that's just how it is.
You were mentioning 8 to 12 months for this pelvic pain
Mm-hmm.
clinic. Is that the longest you've waited for something, or has there been something that you've had to wait longer? Or
No, to be referred to my more specialized gynecologist, I did have to wait a bit over a year.
mm,
But that was right. Like we'd put in the referral during COVID, and
mm,
so her pace had to slow. So
right.
previously it wasn't that long, because I found her through word of mouth, and I knew other patients weren't having to wait that long. It was just result of the system.
Yeah, bad timing for
Mhm.
sure.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, good to know. And then another question for you would be, um, you are active on social media. I love your social media page. What inspired you to become an advocate for the chronic health community or endometriosis?
I think I'd realized that like I'd had my personal Instagram, and then I made like my one that was like just for me. I didn't have anybody that I knew in real life on it.
Mhm.
And I was just following all these people, and it was just really helping seeing people in situations that were a little bit or very similar to mine, and normalizing chronic illness and those sorts of things. And I just thought, oh, I'll just go and I'll try, because I like making graphics on Canva. Like it just feels good. I
Yeah.
like it's something I can create from my bed. Um, and that's just kind of what I started doing. And then I just started having a lot of fun with it and getting to know people, and but also learning about different chronic illnesses, or different like healthcare in different areas, and just yeah, just meeting more people just is a little makes you feel a little less alone.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And they think there's yeah, I think a lot of people in the chronic illness community just feel very alone. And I was definitely one of them. And it's definitely helped my mental health being on Instagram.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, so you kind of build a little community of people who kind of understand what's going on, eh?
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
And it's like somewhere in Australia, somewhere in the UK, somewhere there's all over.
Yeah. And it's
Great.
crazy how technology can do that. Like we're talking and we're probably few thousand kilometers away. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not great with
exactly.
distance.
It's
Yeah.
a long plane ride.
Good. Yeah. Few hours on the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But we're just chatting here because
Yeah.
we met through Instagram as well. Like
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
crazy. Yeah, for sure. And then another question here for you would be if somebody was starting their health journey of potentially with endometriosis or like a chronic health condition, chronic pain we were mentioning, do you have any words of encouragement for them or um, any pieces of advice you could give them?
I think for advice, the one of the things I've started doing um now, because my parents did it when I was younger, is keep a copy of everything. Like
Mm,
every time you're at the doctor's and there's new blood work or a scan or a surgery report, keep a copy of it, even if you can't understand it. Like I have a medical background, and there is still a portion of my surgery report I don't understand, and it's
mm,
okay. I don't have to, because now I have it, because there's human error. People can lose things. People things can be misplaced. Um, and there's nothing worse than showing up to a specialist appointment and realizing that a critical piece of information wasn't forwarded, especially
mm,
when you waited that 6 to 12 months for your appointment. And yeah, as much data as you can collect, I think, on yourself, like tracking your period. You can do it on an app, or you can just do it on a calendar. That's super helpful. Because I find, especially with women, it shouldn't be like it, but it is, that you're taken more seriously when you when you have more information.
Right.
And when you have that information in your pocket, but also you have to toe the line with some doctors, not all, of not coming across as a hypochondriac.
Right.
So there's the balance.
Right.
And it's not right, but there are some doctors that I've known that if I'm going to go, if my fiance can't come, I'm like, Dad, you got to come with me because if there's a man in the room, it'll be helpful.
Because of that.
Yes.
Yeah, because of that like dynamic
Yes.
of because you're a woman.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, like it's not okay, but when you're in the trenches, you just have to do whatever you can to get yourself the care you need.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, it's sometimes when we think about those things, it feels almost a little ridiculous. We have to do it, but in the same time, there's not much else we can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I
And
think is.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say is exactly what you were saying, but please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the phrases that has been the most helpful especially when I'm presenting something new to a doctor, is this something you can help me with, or is it something that I need to be referred for?
Oh.
Because it's very polite, but it's also very assertive. Because the doctor might not be able to help you, like they might just not, but then it's also, you're not accusing them of anything. You're kind of just making sure you're not patting their ego exactly, but being complimentary a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Can you say that one more time?
Oh, yeah.
That phrase one more time. It was so good.
Yes. Is this something you can help me with, or is it something that I need to be referred for?
Love that. Yes, for sure. And then my last question for you would be, has there been any resources, so any books, apps, or websites, or things you use in your day-to-day life that you've found valuable and helpful?
I absolutely do. So for endometriosis specifically, there's so much information, and there's also so much misinformation out there. Nancy's Nook, you can just Google Nancy's Nook, and she's a nurse who's worked extensively in endometriosis, and that there is a really valuable resource library there. So I highly recommend checking that out. If you well, really for everyone, I recommend the book How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis. I listened to the audiobook, and it was really short. It was like 3 hours. And it just totally reframed how I view like care tasks and my abilities, and just making things work for you. You can make your chores and things you have to do easier to fit your life.
That's awesome.
So yeah, those are the big two.
That's awesome, for sure. For sure. Well, I do appreciate you being on the podcast here and kind of telling your story and sharing some things with us. So I really do appreciate it.
It's been so nice to actually meet you and talk to you kind of face to face.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.